Hello there, and welcome back to the railway. Today's video I'm going to be showing you the progress I have made with removing the tracks through the main station, as well as later on showing you the wooden kits that I've been constructing. So to start things off, you can see me here using a pen to do a quick outline of the curves of the tracks as they go into the station as they are at the moment. This is just so it gives me a rough idea as to trying to make the curves then smoother for the new layout of the station, as I will have these pen lines drawn on to use as a comparison. You can see me here as well, just doing a few lines as well around where the coach sheds used to be, just so it gives me a rough idea how much more space there's going to be. In aid to try and keep my workspace organised, you can see me here putting all of the rail joiners all together in one pile. This was just so that they weren't all on the ends of the tracks that I had removed, or indeed any points. I also did the same with all of the loose sleepers that I did to fill in any gaps, as well as the track pins. With the ever-growing piles of pins and rail joiners, I decided to put both of them into the bags that they are supplied in from Pico. just so that it kept them all together and I didn't risk losing any. I also did the same with the spare sleepers that I'd used to fill in any gaps, and I used a small plastic tray to keep them all contained. You can quite clearly see the outlines now for the tracks that I had drawn around the curves, and this will be very useful when I'm relaying the tracks into the station. As you'll be able to see here, I managed to get myself into quite a good rhythm of removing the track pins, which helped speed up the process. But sped up, it does make me look a little bit robotic. I found it quite fun watching back this section of the clip, just looking at the houses to the top left of your screen and seeing them stacked double high. I just thought it was quite amusing, and you can imagine someone with a ladder trying to get up to their house. One thing that I also did later on was to organise the tracks into size groups so that you had similar sized tracks all grouped together. So you didn't, because there were a lot of tracks that were about a foot long or less, but there were some that were almost full length. So I just did that after all of this, just to keep them all easier to go through later on. You might be able to notice to the left of your screen that some of the track has already been removed and the point has been placed there ready for when I'm installing the crossover later. In hindsight, this point here didn't need to be removed as it was pinned in the exact same position it was before, but it did make it a little bit easier with some of the other jobs that I did.
So as you can see, I've now cleared off all of the tracks that was here. You can see it all piled up at the back there. So now all I need to do is take all that off, put it over to the side, so I can then hoover up all of the dust and bits of foam. You can see there's loads of bits of foam over here. So I'll just get those up and hoover all that, and I'll show you how it's going. So as you can see here, I've now finished the smaller of the two station buildings. You can see I've given it a bit of a first coat of paint. I did that while it was still in the frame before I glued it together. It gives you a nice show of all the sides of it. And it gives you it all open to the bottom as well, so if I want to add any figurines or lighting to the inside of this at a later date, I can. But yeah, so it's a really, really nice kit to build, really simple. The instructions are really easy to follow. As you can see, it creates a really nice, well-detailed building, even with a little clock up there. So yeah, I'm really happy with that. I'm going to put this to one side for now. I just need to wait for the two chimneys to dry. I think the rest of it's, and the side bit here still needs to dry as well. So I'll put that to the side to dry, and I'll show you how the main station building is going. So the first thing that I have done, and I did this with the smaller station buildings, I just wanted to see if the technique worked, which it did. So I used it for this one. And what I did was I cut out all of the window frames from this piece of card here. If it's a card or MDF, it might be a very thin MDF. And then what I've then done is I've glued them all onto this sheet of plastic. Now, I was looking around because I have a stash of sheets of plastic like this somewhere, but I can't find it for the life of me. But what I used instead was the plastic sheet that comes in a Metcalf box that covers the hole at the front. I'll just grab one to show you as an example. There we go. So I used the plastic sheet that you can see here. There you go, you can get a side of it. So I just used one of those basically, and I've then glued the window frame, drop that, and I've glued the window frames onto it, which is really effective. What I've also then done, if I show you this sheet here, is I have numbered each window in relation to the number there on here. So you can see this window is W5, but its position that I've glued it in is the first window. So if I take you to this, you can see the first window, it's W5, and so on. So again, if I were to take you to the 18th window, it would then be the 18th one along here. So it would be this one. But yeah, so that's how it's going. I haven't yet extracted any of the parts of this one out of the frame. I just wanted to get the first building done and sorted first, and then work on this one afterwards, which now that that one's done and drying, I can start progress on this one. So I'll show you how it's going, and I'll keep trying to update it. And as well as doing this, I'm also going to be looking at building the two footbridges as well. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to build them so it builds it so you have a set of stairs down on each side. But what I'm going to do is build it so it's 3 sets of stairs, not what would have been 4 if I'd have done it separately. So I'll show you how I'm doing that in a later part. But anyway, I'll get on with this and I'll show you how it's going.
As you can see, I've now removed all of the components from the framing that was holding them all in place. What I've tried to do is keep all of the pieces in a similar order on the trays as to what they were on the sheet, just so it helps make it easier for me to find the pieces that I need. So here you can see the beginning of the assembly process for the station. So first things first was gluing all of the window frames, with the windows of course, onto their designated slots. That was quite intricate, trying to get those exactly where I needed them, but as you can see it paid off very well. And once those windows had all dried, I then started to slot together the other pieces to then start the construction of the station. So here you can see the model about halfway through the assembly process. So as you can see, most of the building is complete. All it needs doing now is just fitting the roof struts, the roof itself, and the windows at the front, as well as a couple of doors. Now these are the windows in question that I hadn't put yet at the front. It didn't tell you to put any glazing on these, and I can see why, as it is incredibly fiddly window to do. Because you need to leave the hole at the bottom uncovered so it slots on, and you need to make sure that the plastic doesn't go any higher than the brickwork at the top, otherwise the notch won't be able to go into the slot that's there ready for it. But nevertheless, I did manage to get some windows onto these window frames, which does make a big difference rather than just having a big hole going into the front of the building. So here you can see the main roof assembly under layer is now all in, just drying off. You can also see the 2 sections of roof to the left and right of the building have also been glued in, as well as the ridge around the front, which provides a bit of a shelter. One thing I also did before gluing these support struts in place was just to sand down the lugs that would go into the roof itself, just to make them slot in a bit easier so it wasn't quite as stiff to try and push the roof on, as I didn't want to risk breaking anything underneath.
So as you can see, the main station building is now finished. It gives a really nice looking building as well. I showed you earlier these windows. You can see again how fiddly they were to try and get the window panels in. And so as you can see, it's the middle ones I put more glue in them to give it kind of a more thicker look to the glass, which works really well when you look at ones like this and compare it with that one. It gives the look I was after. So yeah, it's really, really nice kit to build. I had a slight issue with some of the numbering of some of the parts, that after it got past a certain point, it was numbering the parts two numbers higher than they should have been. So for example, I can't remember what number the roof was, but say this roof was numbered number 8 on the sheet, but on the instructions it would have said number 12 or something like that. So the numbers had been skewed out a little bit, but just keeping an eye on the pictures and looking at the parts that I was using, it was able to figure out which pieces were going where. So I'll now give you a look at each angle of the building. So you've already seen this side. This is the view you'll see it most, as it will be sat way over there at the back, and this is the side you'll see the most. That's the view from the top, which is really nice the way it's got all the different angles to the roof, and that was quite fiddly getting especially this bit here, and you can imagine with how small those pieces in the roof were. The one thing that was quite difficult to get in was this chimney pot, because you can see it's gone in slightly at an angle because the notches in the roof where it slots in, you might get a good view of it there if I zoom in. You can see they're at a slight angle, so they weren't quite centered with each other. So it was very difficult getting that chimney pot in. I tried to get it in the first time and it wouldn't go in, so I had to take it out. And then you can see I've sanded, you can just about see there that I then have to sand down and file it on each side to then try and get it to fit in, which it did in the end, so that's gone all right. So I'll show you this side, so you can see that these windows on the end here only has the, there we go, only has the detailing on them to the one side, which isn't too much of a problem. They still look really nice from this side as well. So now I'll show you the back side of the building. It gave you an option as well to fit these doors as open or closed, so it gave you two sets of these doors. These ones you didn't have to fit any windows in because they were going to be flush with the walls like that, as you can see. The other ones they gave you could fit windows too and have them flush with the front, so you can see the two holes up there. That's then how it would lock in to hold it in place. So you can see it's a really nice looking building. I'll show you there's then even a little staircase going up to the, get into focus, going up to this doorway up here, which is really nicely detailed. I love as well having these, I'm not sure what it would be called, the ridge underneath the roof. I had it as well on the other building I did over there, but I think it looks really nice going around the edge. Just much more detailed, I would say, than the Metcalf kits that I've done in the past. And this is the final side as well. These little corner pieces here, where my thumb is, those were incredibly difficult to get to stay on. Even applying a very large amount of glue, it kept popping off. So I had to hold it in place for quite a while before the glue had set. Almost got my finger stuck while doing it, but never mind. So yeah, it does then give you a few strips of brickwork, as you can see on this, that you can then use to cover up these bits here on the edges, so where the joins are. I'm probably not going to fit those because I like how it looks as it is, and as well because of the thickness it has to do it for end gauge. These are then printed on a darker wood, whereas these are on the plywood, whereas this is on a much darker shade of woodwork, which I don't think would look as nice going there. So what I'll do is when I'm painting this up, I'll then just make sure I try and hide any of those little notches and details. And I'll do the same with the roof as well, just trying to make sure that when I'm painting over the tiles, I then paint on details of where you can imagine tiles would be on that. But yeah, so I'm really pleased with how this has gone. You can see underneath as well, just like the other kit, it gives you a nice opportunity for putting some lights in the building if you wanted to. But yeah, so those two buildings done. I'm now going to start making the footbridges, and I'll show you how that goes later on.
So here you can see the beginnings of the footbridge and how it's beginning to take its shape. This was an incredibly fiddly kit to build, but very satisfying once it was done. This just gives you a different angle just so you can see how small the steps are. And in case you couldn't quite tell how small these steps were, here they are next to an N-gauge wagon. Now, if you're not familiar with N-gauge, these wagons that I have are about the width of your finger. Now, as you can see with the size of the steps next to them and how small the little pegs are to then try and slot them into the holes and keep them in place, this was an incredibly fiddly job. And I found it made life a bit easier slightly sanding down these pegs, as they were slightly too big for the hole, and when you pushed them in they had a very, very tight fit, but just giving them a gentle sanding down just helped with having them slot in nicely but not too loose so they would fall out, but with a nice decent bit of pressure holding them in, which then also made it easier when offering up the other side of the steps to then hold all the steps in place. So here you can see all of the main framework for the bridge now complete. It was quite fiddly then trying to get all these pieces together, but it was very manageable, just needed to take your time with it. Now, as you might recall from a previous video, I was going to be making this a double bridge in essence. So as you can see here, I cut one of the notches short. This was so that when I was attaching the two sections of the footbridge together, which you'll see in a minute, it then meant I didn't have to drill as big of a hole for the lugs to go into to make the bridge secure. So here you can see the main framework for both spans of the bridge now complete. As I said, this was quite fiddly as well, trying to then drill the holes into the wood material, trying to then get the right size hole in the right place to then try and get those pegs or lugs to try and get them in. But yeah, so I managed that, and that was quite satisfying once it was done. So with all of the tricky work now done, all I had to do was fit the detailed handrails and sides to the bridge. Now this was quite straightforward. All I had to do was make a couple of modifications to some of the sections just to cut them short, just so it didn't block off some of the areas, so it then gave a nice clean run through. So here you can see the back of the bridge. I decided in the end to use the fourth set of stairs as an extra way down onto the platform, which you can see here. And it also gives the bridge a rather unique look.
So here you are, you can now see all of the new constructions in their places. So that's what I say roughly where that one's going to go. You've got the nice bridge here. This building, I'm not sure what angle I'm having it as to whether it's going to be more along here, up here. I haven't decided yet, so that's kind of just floating around in my head as to where I want best to place it. If any of you have got any suggestions in the comments, just let me know, because I'm not sure whether to have it here at this angle. Again, it will be the same height as the platform. I'm not sure whether to have it at this angle, so it then almost acts so you have the end of the lines here, bit of a gap, and then you've got the building here, or whether to have it on this side, so you've then still got the end of the platform here, so then you've got like a little corridor bit of platform that then links to a platform on this side where this sits. As I said, I'm not sure. If you just let me know in the comments what you think would be the best fit as to whether to have the platform along here like this or up here, or if you have any different suggestions other than those, just let me know down in the comments section below. But yeah, so now that all of that's done, that now means that the next thing I can start doing is start sorting out the track work, which I'm very excited to start doing. I just need to finalise the decision of to where this platform will be as to how far back or forwards this track's going to be. Because once I've decided where that track's going to be, I can put that in, and then I'll use these Pico spacers to decide where the second track goes. So that those two will be reasonably simple. This track here is going to be a little bit more difficult, trying to figure out the width of the platform I want, but that shouldn't be too difficult. I'm thinking of just using a ruler just to measure the gap that I'm in, like the look of, and then what I'll do is I'll just do a trace line around and follow the curve almost, so it'll give me a template to follow with where that track would then go. So that's going to bring this video to an end. Thank you for watching. If you've enjoyed the video, please do give it a like, and indeed subscribe to the channel, it's free. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.